Hello, hello.
Hello, hello.
So today I've got a good friend of mine, Sophia.
Hi, Alex. How are you?
Yep. So she's recently started her own adventure.
Yes.
So tell me a bit more about what you do.
So I have very recently started People Story, which is a recruitment company focused across Asia for advertising, media, ad tech, martech, kind of digital tech industry. But yeah, with an Asia remit.
I love the name. I told you before I was really impressed with that name. So
Yeah.
how did you think of that name?
It was a painstaking process for a long time, and I really, really wanted to get the name right. And it was troubling me for weeks, actually. There was another name before that actually got listed and registered and a URL. And then right at the last minute, I had a really good girlfriend of mine fly over from Mexico to Hong Kong, as you do. And we went for a very long dinner, and we both agreed that we didn't like the name, but we had no other options. And over a few hours of conversation, actually a couple of bottles of wine between us, we came up with People's Story, and it just sat well, and it immediately was like resonated, and the reception of the name's been great, which has been lovely.
What's the philosophy behind this whole people story?
In terms of the name?
In the name and your business?
And the name of the business. Look, first and foremost, we are a recruitment company. Like that is kind of, the bread and butter, call a spade a spade. But I wanted it to develop and the business to build into being more than a recruitment company, but also be more holistic from the sort of the people department. It's a department that is growing within companies. We used to call it HR talent, or HR and talent acquisition, or recruitment. And now, with DE&I, with kind of welfare benefits, wellness, what candidates and team members want from companies, like the people department is becoming a much more holistic thing. You're now seeing chief people officers in businesses. That's not a role that existed 10 years ago. So I wanted the name and also the business to reflect the change in the industry, and sort of moving forward, that it's not just about bums on seats, that there's a much kind of wider department going on here that cares about team members, employees, as I said, in a much more holistic way than, well done, you got the job.
And before you start your own venture, I remember we met way back when you were introducing candidates, and we were on the other side of the
client side.
the client side.
Yeah.
So how long were you in the business before you decided to start?
Bit of a convoluted way in which I got into recruitment, but trust me, if you ask any recruiter how they got into recruitment, they didn't choose that path. It seems to be a career that we all sort of fall into. I was in advertising myself after university. I was working in eBay and Gumtree's advertising team, selling banner ads via the phone, like old school stuff. I can't even remember what the measurements were, but the square ones, the rectangle ones, the banner ones. And then moved to Singapore, actually with an ex-boyfriend's job. So that's why we went there. And I approached a recruitment company that specialized in advertising, and said, looking to get a job and within the industry. And they sort of said to me very politely, you're too junior, you're too green, you've got no network, you're expensive for the experience that you're actually bringing, and sort of said, no, we're not going to be able to get you a job. But we like you. So would you think about doing recruitment for us? And at the time I was just kind of focused on, I guess, getting a visa and making the move to Singapore. So I said yes, not really with any knowledge than a couple of my friends in London who did recruitment. And I always thought it didn't look like the most exciting job in the world. But it was kind of my ticket out there. And within 3 to 6 months, I was like, this job has been made for me. I love it. And it was still within the space of advertising. and media, which is kind of the industry that I loved anyway. And then just 1 year turned into 2, turned into 3, and here we are.
Nice. I mean, seriously, I've heard so many stories about coming with their partner into HR, and then they never leave. They never leave. Once they come, they never leave. Well, no matter what happens, right?
Regardless of how that relationship pans out.
Yep, that was the beginning, but but the end is always different.
Yeah, I think I did the classic sort of Brit move, or maybe not Brit, but sort of expat moving abroad, sort of do 2 years and then go home. And I think you hit a sort of 4 or 5. I'm on year 8 or 9, 8 this year. I think you hit a sort of 4 or 5 mid sort of way through where you go, right, it is either go home or your life is so then established on a different side of the world, be it Asia or vice versa, the States. And I was always sort of up until year 4, and obviously we had COVID, which was a different story. I was always like, yeah, I'll leave next year. That was always the rhetoric. I'll leave next year. I'll leave the year after. And then I sort of crossed over into year 5, and I was like, no, I'm not leaving. I'm really happy in Asia.
I'm on year 17.
17. Yes, that's just life.
No, but so when did you move to Hong Kong? Like, how long did you stay in Singapore?
So I'm on a kind of 50-50 split at the moment in terms of I did 4-ish years Singapore, and then I'll be 4 years in Hong Kong in December.
Oh yes, I remember.
Yeah,
you just moved. You just moved.
That's when we first met.
Yep. I remember now. Yes.
And I kind of did it a bit of a weird way around because I went through the whole of COVID through Singapore, which, as some people will know or might not know, was probably one of the worst countries to be in terms of the restrictions that we had and kind of the lockdowns. And then actually the weekend that Singapore opened up was the weekend I landed in Hong Kong.
You wanted out so bad.
Yeah, I was chasing lockdowns. And then Hong Kong probably persisted for another year, I think, ish. We were still wearing masks in February 23.
We were the last.
We were the last. Yeah, exactly. So I've probably done one of the longest and harshest COVID's going.
No, I'm sure there's worse, but
no, of course.
I'm not going to mention it.
No, of course.
So how does it feel like Asia? I mean, you start your whole recruitment sort of journey in Asia. What's your take on recruitment in Asia? Maybe comparing to the Western side.
I guess speaking from someone within the industry, just really honestly, I can't comment too sort of intellectually on the European market or the sort of American market because I haven't actually ever worked. I've only ever sort of worked in recruitment within Asia. But obviously I still work with partners who are there, clients who are there, I have friends who are there. And I think the market here, I think, is less competitive and less cutthroat from a recruitment perspective in terms of your career and your development. Like the London market, I know for a fact, is incredibly saturated. And, to win really good clients and to win really good business is an art. And you're sort of not fighting, but you're competing against 20 people in your space who are completely on par with your ability and level, if not better. And I think we have a smaller market here. I also think from a kind of the way business is done and from what I understand is that we get a lot more personal touch and like time and FaceTime with people in Asia. Like companies want to meet you more. It feels less transactional in this market, and that's not to discredit, the recruitment market elsewhere in the world, but it definitely feels like when you partner with someone, like, you and I have become friends.
True.
And I could say that for a vast majority of the clients I've worked with, they sort of end up becoming sort of semi-friends in a way, and you get to, you're speaking to them more than you're speaking to your parents back home some weeks.
No, that's for sure. No, but I think it's also the culture as well.
Exactly, and that's what I was going to lean into as well. Is kind of that face-to-face culture that is still really ingrained here.
In the drinking culture as well, maybe.
We're on a podcast.
we can talk about that.
Yeah. But no, I think clients. I mean, Hong Kong in particular, everyone still wants to kind of, get to know each other off a work environment, off a Zoom call, outside of the cafes, and I think also just generally speaking, like Asia is a really social market. We're also living in cities where everyone's much closer together. In London, or you've got people in Manchester working with people in London, and vice versa. And here we're all in quite a small city, and you can meet up after work within half an hour.
I think the traveling is a pain, like in anywhere other than Asia. Asia is very packed in that sense.
Yeah, but we are on an airplane a lot more.
True.
You were in Taiwan this week?
Yep, I just got back last night.
Yeah, see, exactly. And then you'll be off somewhere else next week.
Oh, gosh. No, but actually, you filled roles across Asia.
Yeah.
Do you see a very different culture in terms of candidates to employers? How do you see the difference between different parts of Asia?
There are definitely nuances for sure, and definitely things that you need to be aware of. And then I guess that's kind of where our job comes in as a recruitment partner, is that if we are working with a company expanding from a New York or even a Sydney, they might not understand some of the cultural nuances, and that's for us to educate. But generally speaking, the hubs, as we call it, the sort of Singapore, Hong Kong, Tokyo, are relatively international. Japan's slightly different. It's a more conservative market, just in terms of how people operate and how people behave. And then, with the local markets, like the candidates are really excited and perceptive to companies expanding now, and that's a big change we've seen. 5 years ago, headhunting someone in Vietnam, I don't know how you get access to them. These people weren't on LinkedIn. You literally have to fly to Vietnam to be able to find these people. But the world kind of digitally is opening up, which means if you are hiring in the local markets, the access is much easier now, and that makes all the difference.
Which is the most active market now, currently?
Japan, to be honest. In terms of, it's not necessarily the most active because there's the most amount of business going, but it's probably where companies want on-the-ground teams, want talent there, per se. A lot of Southeast Asia people run from Singapore.
Yep.
You're running Taiwan from Hong Kong and flying over, you have a team there. Japan is a bit of a different story, Korea as well. So because you need on-the-ground teams, that there's a lot of hiring happening there at the moment. Others can be a little bit more kind of remote.
Do you see the biggest growth in the sector more on platforms, or what sort of solutions are hot at the moment in the Japan market or even Korean market?
It's the DSPs who are growing out there. It's all about entering the market and sort of getting Japanese consumers, because the spending is high.
Yep.
And it's a market that without language, without cultural nuances, without understanding how the local market works, you're never going to quite grasp it. So you need to be there presence-wise. And also with the agencies. The agencies want to work with you face-to-face.
Yep. No, especially Japanese people.
Exactly.
Very, very
Exactly. If you want to work with Dempsey, you've got to take them for dinner. There's a big need for, and it's a great market, and the talent pool is amazing. Really strong talent who've worked for amazing platforms. People don't move that often. They're very loyal to their companies that they work for, and very committed. So the talent pool is really strong, but they are now sort of opening up more and more people like, oh, okay, this company's coming. Oh, well, I might entertain a move out of my 17-year tenure. So no, it's exciting. It's good.
No,
good
yeah, that's
market.
what I was thinking, because my understanding of Japanese people, like they're not as acceptive to change. They kind of be a bit more comfortable. Like I think more stereotyping in that sense maybe, but just the people I've met a lot of times they're very conservative.
Yeah, and I'd say like loyal to the employer that they've had, which is very, very admirable. I think I've seen that change even in the last 18 months. And I think it's because there are so many interesting international players who are expanding there, and people don't want to miss out. And these players weren't necessarily in market before. So now that there are candidates who are more receptive to a change and would entertain the conversation, whereas 3 years ago they wouldn't.
Do you see this also as a generation thing where Gen Zs, Gen Alphas coming, they're more like well educated in terms of like from an international perspective, or it's just a general trend? Like,
I mean, if we're talking about Japan specifically, I think that's just a market that's opening up internationally, and everyone is now aware of that. And they're seeing their peers, so and so move to become MD of this company, and if you're sort of committed to your career and competitive in a certain way, you don't want to be seen as not seen as, but you don't want to be the person who falls behind or isn't going to be considered for exciting new positions. Gen Z topic is just wildly different.
We'll go into that. We'll go into that. I was just trying to get my head around because I love that openness. It sounds like there's a lot more openness, and things are moving a lot faster than back in my days when I was dealing with Japan. So it seems like a very positive change.
No, really, really positive.
Very positive change.
And welcomed on both sides. The candidates I'm working with in Japan are really excited about the companies that are coming, how they might disrupt the market, how the agencies are going to kind of work with them and sort of look at their tech stack. So, I think it's a really positive thing.
How about Southeast Asia? There's a lot of, focus on Southeast Asia, especially like Philippines and Indonesia, where there's huge population in the market. Is that still the focus?
Yeah, Southeast Asia is still as much. I'd say that Japan and Korea is a sort of newer thing. Southeast Asia has always been there as the kind of growth space. From once you're in Singapore, you sort of expand across Southeast Asia. And again, because of the consumers there, but also really strong talent in the local markets.
It needs to be very local as well, from my experience. Like it needs to be completely, you cannot send anyone there apart from having their own.
Exactly. And it is very, very much like that, language-wise as well. But just also the markets are much more close-knit, and everyone went to school together and went to university together. And, the industry might be millions of people, but it's small.
Yep. That's why I think Hong Kong is quite unique on its own. Like we are extremely adaptive, and multicultural. It's
hugely.
Kind of like anyone can make a career in Hong Kong.
Yeah, totally.
So how about the trends? Like with all the changes post COVID now, suddenly we've got AI, and like has the recruitment process changed a lot? Because one of the funny stories I heard was that in Australia, like there was a friend in recruitment. They used to get, say, for a mid management role or more junior role, on average maybe 30 CVs, for example. Okay. Just say 30. Like typically you get first week 30 applications or so, and then since there was AI, he was getting 200.
Since AI,
yes, you've got people who have no experience in the job, but they use ChatGPT to actually tailor a CV for the job. And once you go through the interview process, then you find out it's got nothing to do with the role. So their process became a lot more tedious. So is that happening in your sort of...
Interesting, because I was going to say that on a flip side of the AI, I'll come back to what you're saying, was I think most of the sort of 90+% of the Fortune 500 are using AI ATS, like applicant tracking systems, within their portal somewhere to kind of, I guess, grade and sift through CVs. Because I was going to say one benefit of that is it also cuts out people who aren't relevant. I once had a beekeeper
apply
to a CMO role.
Yep. Yep. I heard some crazy stories
at a sportswear brand that I was working with, and fantastic beekeeper as far as I could see, but not totally irrelevant for a CMO role. Whereas an applicant tracking system would obviously prevent that CV reaching, which does save time and is efficient in that respect. But I suppose, to your point, you're sort of thinking about actually candidates then using the AI to create their relevancy to certain roles as well. So it can
work both ways.
It can work both ways. I think it's from a talent acquisition, HR, people perspective, it's one of the departments that is using it the most now, kind of in terms of professional departments within a business. And it's just about how to use it. It's not verbatim that AI will replace the internal talent manager, the hiring manager who's interviewing, the external recruiter who's also helping. That won't happen, because you negate empathy, you negate asking difficult questions, you like ambition, motivation, vibe with the company culture. Those are things that AI is not going to be able to replace. But are they able to match skill sets quite simply and maybe provide a shortlist when you have got 500 applications? Yeah, that's fantastic. But it needs to be used in conjunction with humans.
Yep. No, that's what when we had lunch the other week, last week, I was just saying, is a talent. Like when I was speaking to you, that was a talent. Like you kind of get to feel the candidate, and if it matches the company. Like the sort of vibe that, I think that's something AI cannot do.
No,
in the
exactly.
In the communication process, you cannot include emotion and and the vibe and personality, because you were able to just click out this person is good for A. I think this is the hidden talent. Tell me about the story that how you hired your first staff working for you.
First staff working. So Reka, who's fantastic and brilliant and is in the office right now.
You should bring her over.
I know, next time she can come. She can give you her 2 cents. She came with me from the previous firm we were both working at. But how I found her originally was I was working at my previous firm, and we were getting busy. It was post-COVID. It was 2022, and the recruitment market was mental. And I said to my boss at the time, I was like, I need some more help. And he said, right, go and hire sort of someone as a kind of an associate sort of level, junior kind of level, to support you. And I didn't really want to hire a recruiter. No offense to the other recruiters, junior recruiters out there, but I wanted to hire someone deliberately with no experience, but who was smart, had a strong personality, and who was just kind of hungry and eager to learn, just kind of had their personal attributes. I didn't mind if that person didn't know anything about recruitment, wasn't fussed. And Reka applied actually on LinkedIn. We put an advert up, and she was an analyst in a bank, in a Japanese bank. She'd done some work in PR and marketing kind of briefly before that, but at the time was working in a bank. So I was just quite intrigued by her profile. And we met, and she just had this really quirky character and just was really, really bubbly and energetic. And I normally find it quite difficult sometimes to find people who like match my energy, and she was like way up here. And
that must be crazy if she's got more energy than you there.
And I just thought, you're great. And also, working in a Japanese bank, you got to be smart. Like, I didn't even have to sort of look at her education. I was like, there's no way you got that job unless you're super smart. And she didn't really know much about what recruitment entails. I mean, everyone knows on the packet what it is, but sort of talked her through, I guess, more of the sort of ins and outs of how it actually works day to day, like what you will actually be doing day to day. I was like, you'll be on the phone all day. I hope you're okay with that. And she thought it sounded great, and we kind of went from there. And then, I was with her for a couple of years at previous firm, and then she came over to People's Story in January.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Do you find that it's more difficult? So, like you have a English speaking team, and she's on the phone every day. Is that a challenge, especially in Hong Kong, or you don't see that as?
No, not really. I would say sometimes like local market hiring, if we've got a role in Vietnam or Japan, for instance, and the English fluency isn't super strong, the conversation it can be a little bit slower, and it can be a bit longer. But generally speaking, I mean, most of the clients I'm working with are English first, international offices. You do have some offices that are kind of more international than others and vice versa. But generally speaking, it's all English. I mean, I've managed to make a career as an English speaker with very poor Spanish in Asia. It hasn't hindered me just yet. So
No, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Now, speaking of the younger generation, like coming into recruitment, sounds like there's no barrier. There's no prerequisite on what you should, your experience should be. What would you recommend, or how do you recommend people to come into the recruitment industry?
First of all, I would say it's not for everyone, and I do mean that politely. Yes, there are skill sets in terms of HR and talent, but ultimately it's also very heavy sales. We use the word sales because that scares a lot of people off, but it is. We have financial targets, revenue targets. You also are not going to achieve any of those targets without picking up the phone or asking someone for lunch or a coffee. You have to put yourself out there. So if you're not an outgoing person or sort of confident person socially, that's totally fine, but it's probably not your career path. Not that you also need to be super loud. It's not that, but just the business development, the client development, speaking to candidates every day, like that is something where socially you have to put yourself out there. So if that's not what you are looking for, not what you're comfortable with day to day, then I would say skip recruitment. But other than that, it's all recruitment. You can be as successful as you put into it. I mean, it's the same with any job, but if you work hard, I think it helps to have have an industry or be within an industry that you are personally interested. You don't need to necessarily have come from the industry like myself. But for instance, if someone asked me to be a finance recruiter tomorrow, I'd quit. Just not going to happen. So I think having a genuine interest, be it experience or no experience, but in the field, because you're having conversations every day about this industry. You're asking people from this industry about what they do for a job. If you're not interested, I mean, you have to listen a lot as well in recruitment. If you're not interested, it won't last.
I think it's quite a unique sales position in that sense, because when you're talking to employers, you're looking for an opportunity to fulfill their requests. So we're not selling technically, and then when you're with candidate, you kind of do the matching. So you need the eye on the candidate, where I think a more experienced recruiter can see through the candidate a lot faster.
Yeah,
I think that's kind of the talent. But also, like you mentioned, you need to speak a lot. Like you need to keep talking to people to actually build those skill set in that.
Yeah.
So I think it's quite an interesting sort of line. We're used to selling. Okay, it's transactional. I'm looking for A. I'm trying to provide a solution with B. But with recruitment, it's kind of like you're right in the middle, trying to pull the two together.
Yeah, and there can be curveballs.
Give me an example.
Well, just, for instance, if you are selling a piece of software into an agency, that software doesn't change its mind on Monday because they had a bad dream. I've had that. I've had a candidate have a nightmare on the Sunday evening before they were going to be accepting the offer on the Monday. And they said, I've had this weird dream, can't accept the offer.
Good.
Yeah, literally that's happened. That was a bit of and you can't really, there's not really much you can say say to that one. You're like, you sure it's just a bad dream? No,
you should sleep tonight and then see if you have a bad dream.
people can also, without the nightmares, just change their mind. You've also got, a lot of candidates will have a spouse. Maybe that spouse doesn't know about this up and coming startup that's pre-IPO, and they're currently working at Google, and they're saying, well, why the hell would you leave Google to go to these guys? There's internal dynamics, especially, if people have got a family and you're a significant breadwinner of the family, that conversation about a career move is usually a joint conversation to some degree. People have to move abroad, people can get sick, they can have family get sick, people get pregnant. It's I think the thing that we do with recruitment is just try and guide the candidate as solidly as we can through the process. But we are also dealing with humans at the end of the day. And sometimes there are things that happen that you're never going to be able to predict. And sometimes it doesn't work out, but that's the nature of just, working in the industry or any industry that deals with humans, basically.
Tell me the most crazy experience you had.
Crazy experience. Filling a role.
No, I know you have many crazy experiences, so let's stick to filling the role first.
I mean, I've had roles, very rarely, and I'm sure I probably shouldn't be advertising this as a recruiter. I've had a role that took 18 months, which was, yes, it was senior. And we unfortunately lost 2 of the candidates that we wanted through the process. One to pregnancy, one to husband or wife being moved abroad. And so, 18 months, I was sort of look at the fee at the end and you say, if I was a lawyer, this fee would be a lot bigger than it's ended up being a year and a half later. You do have, people say recruiters ghost, and yes, it does happen. Candidates also do it. I've had a client ring me once and say, so they've just not turned up on their first day. I think if you speak to most hiring managers out there, it does happen. And I think especially sometimes people would rather not face the music than to say, I've actually accepted another offer or I've decided to stay. Have you had it?
Yep.
Yeah. I was going to say, again, not advertising great recruitment practice, but it can happen. So yeah, there's always, as I said, you're dealing with people and people are unpredictable. Nothing too wild, but yeah, there's a few funny ones here and there.
18 months. Like, how do you maintain the persistency? Like, or you don't think of it as this is fate. If one gets pregnant, another one goes, I'm like, maybe I shouldn't be doing this role.
At that point, it became personal for me. I was just like, I have to fill this. I think the client was like, it's fine, don't worry, we know you're trying your hardest. I was like, no, I will fill this. But I think there was a bit more kind of leeway on that one because it was a senior hire, and for a business critical hire at that level, and that person's going to be staying for 5 to 10 years. Getting the right person rather than filling the role is much more important and can be detrimental otherwise. But yeah, there are some executive search processes that actually do take that long with certain businesses right at the top, or with the big banks or consultancy firms. Like, some of those processes do take that long. For our industry, that's pretty unheard of. But as you've seen, it has happened.
Well, you've just gave me one example.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm sure there are others, but that's probably the longest one for me.
With a lot of roles, like, as someone hiring in the market for the past few years as well, normally we engage like more than one recruiter.
Yeah.
Like, so like, how do you guys handle these sort of like friendly competition and not bumping into each other's candidates and
competitors? It was funny. I was at now that you bring that up, I was at ATS in Singapore a few weeks ago, and for a period of time I grabbed a coffee and was walking around with a very dear friend of mine who is another recruitment company that we all know, and she sort of works not exactly in my space, but we cross paths a lot, and we bumped into a client of ours. And he said, what do you two do standing next to each other and walking around ATS together? I was like, we're friends. We've always been friends. we used to work together at a company once upon a time. He's like, isn't that weird? And I said, well, you know, you're from this company, you're from that company, aren't you both trying to win OMD at the moment? It's the same thing. So, I mean, competition's good, healthy competition, right? That's what you always say. And I think the other thing is that we, I guess, are quite a personal service in terms of once you work with a recruiter that you like and that have performed, done the job, you kind of are usually quite happy to stick with them. I work with clients who say, no, sorry, we exclusively work with so-and-so, and we have done for a decade. And I'm sure there will be clients of mine who might say that if another recruiter approached them. That's not to say that quite often still work with companies who have multiple. I don't like to do that. But yeah, it happens.
But you know what the crazy thing is for me? Like all of the recruiters that's approached me, for business.
Yeah.
They're all very nice. I've never met a recruiter that's not nice. Like, in a way, you all have the same vibe. Like, like you got that recruiter vibe.
Oh no, don't say that. I hate that recruiter vibe.
The recruiter vibe.
No, I hate
you're
that.
the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man.
Oh god.
But no, but I mean in a positive way. Like, I really admire, or like everyone that I've met in this industry, except for one or two. But there's always a couple. But like it's such a positive vibe, and the relationship building and like the friendship.
That's exactly.
So I think that's something very, very unique. You don't get that in many industry where competition is friendly, everyone have a good chat, but that's just the nature of in recruitment. Like I see that as quite like a positive vibe. Like even in a bad economy or where business is bad, everyone is still doing their thing, and
I mean, me personally, I don't see the point in not being nice to other people, just full stop. But I guess also, we're a people industry. You kind of can't really afford to not sort of behave respectfully or with other people, and it's business. It's nothing's personal. That's why I said a very, very dear friend of mine is probably one of my main competitors. Like out of all my friends who like from architects to chefs to finance, she's one of my closest friends, and she's a recruiter, and she's probably one of my main competitors. But it doesn't. It's business, not personal.
So now that you've been in Asia for 8 years doing this, I know like you've got a huge friend network. I'm sure. Is most of your network built in the last 8 years because of the industry that you're in?
In terms of
like from coming over as someone like expat new to the country, now you've probably got the like biggest friends network of anybody. Like I've been here 17 years. I probably don't have a network like yours in terms of...
It is separate though. It is quite separate. I think I've only, in terms of done recruitment for friends, I'm doing some recruitment for 2 friends of mine now, but it's always been very, very, and that's only because they have their own businesses, and that definitely didn't happen when we were in our 20s. None of my friends had their own businesses in their 20s. So I've got a really lovely network of candidates and like clients and companies I've worked with, and people who have become friends over like yourself, who have become friends over the years, and then socially just sort of keep getting asked to a dinner here or a party here or something, and you kind of just end up making friends. But yeah, generally speaking, I've always, not even deliberately, but just kept it quite separate, just I guess by chance. And occasionally you might be out and sort of spot a client that you owe an email to and sort of scurry away or something.
All right. Now that you talk about party,
no.
Let's talk about your experience in Asia.
Okay.
So tell me how you feel about Asia after being here 8 years.
I love it. I love Asia. It's so social. It's, I think London is a fantastic city, and there are things about London that I really miss. And I miss and this is no offense to Hong Kong and Singapore, but the music scene, like live music scene, art scene, theatre, like that's something that my parents have always been really into, and as a family kind of grown up with. And so it's very limited here and it's smaller. And so that's something I miss. But aside from that, and I love kind of food and restaurants and I cook a lot. So the F&B scene in Asia is insane. Like,
second to none.
I just, I don't even bother writing lists of restaurants I want to go to because it's infinite, and I've been to like 0.5% of them so far, and I eat out a lot. So yeah, I mean, that's amazing. And just, I think socially, in terms of meeting people, I mean, it sounds very cliche, but every walk of life, different nationalities. Like in my friendship group in Hong Kong, I think I'm the only, there was one English girl, but she's moved back to London, but I'm the only English person in my entire friendship group. And there's about, I guess, the wider group of us is about 15, 16 people, only English person, which like that just wouldn't happen if I was still living back in the UK. So, and just completely different ages. I'm the baby. Everyone's way older than me. Everyone's got completely different careers, all different walks of life. And but everyone's kind of got the same attitude. Like everyone's moved abroad. Everyone's kind of quite career driven because that's typically why you move abroad. It's usually career led. So weirdly, as different as we all might be, we all kind of either are coming from the same place mentally or going to the same place mentally. I'm not quite sure which one. But we're all veering in the same direction.
Then how about Singapore and Hong Kong? You've lived there 50-50.
Yeah. Oh, I hate this question.
Oh, tell me.
No, what was your question before I jump in?
Okay, well, tell me your experience and the difference. I'll just share a little bit.
Do.
Just to keep you warm, and then you don't freak out. There's one thing I really admire about Singapore. When I went there, we after work, everyone coming out of the office, and they were all sitting at the food market having dinner. You see a lot of multiracial groups coming together.
Yeah.
You've got from say Indian, Chinese, like Asian, Caucasian, we'll all sit together after work having a nice meal. Just everywhere like that multicultural vibe is
it's fantastic.
It's fantastic. Even in Hong Kong, we're supposedly the multicultural city. I don't seem to see that as much.
Agree.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like just in general, like when you go out, you'll see a lot more like the French will stick with the French. And
the French stick with the French.
And Chinese and like I it's not that we don't have it, but it's not everywhere. If you know what I mean, like you still have this little sort of racial sort of social group a lot more compared to Singapore. So I was quite impressed in that sense where because I've got friends like all over. So for me that was a very pleasant for me to see. But in Hong Kong, even for me, looking back, I see that there's still that little bit of a gap. So that's my sort of take. I haven't lived in Singapore, so I can't say.
But you've been to Singapore lots for work or just for holidays and trips.
Yeah, I have to say I like Hong Kong more.
Singapore has a really special place in my heart, and I kind of started my career there. I guess I moved there mid to kind of late 20s, so like kind of first real like adult kind of grown up years living on my own, not like with friends or with parents or in university. Like so Singapore I guess was like when I was a grown up for the first time, you could sort of say. And I love it, and it's a fantastic city, and like you said, it's so international, super multicultural. It runs like clockwork. It's sort of people always sort of joke and tease that it's like a theme park or a Legoland, and in many ways it is, but in a good way. It's fantastic. I always say this, like, it's a lovely place to live. Life is good in Singapore. Living there, it's easy, but it does, on the flip side, get complaints of being a little bit too formulaic or, you know, a little bit rigid, a little bit sterile. And there are kind of truths in that. But then you're also only 15 minutes away from Changi at any point in the airport. And everywhere in Southeast Asia is an hour and a half away. You know, we're in Hong Kong 4 or 5 hours away from quite a lot of the Southeast Asia sort of places you might want to go on a holiday. So a Friday to a Sunday trip with a 5-hour flight doesn't necessarily make sense unless you've got a public holiday. Singapore, you could just go for a night and it would make sense. So if it gets a bit too sterile, you can just leave and go to Bangkok, you know, for a weekend.
True.
And it's still super cheap.
No, I actually had a friend that told me he came to Hong Kong from the States because we've got the most holidays. And we can it's actually close to travel anywhere.
It still is very close.
Still very close.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna stick up for Hong Kong for this one.
I thought Indonesia was 15.
Oh, really?
Indonesia's 15. I don't think we're 15. I think
No, public holidays.
Yeah.
I need to count.
Yeah.
I heard that from him.
We've got a lot though.
At my point, like, you know, I actually don't remember public holidays anymore. like there's holiday tomorrow. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, whoops. I haven't planned anything.
I have no idea when the holidays are, but usually the team tells me.
Yeah, because the office is suddenly empty.
Yeah, like, oh, we're not here tomorrow. Why?
Something I don't know about.
But I think there is a difference in the culture. I do enjoy both, to be honest. Like, but for me personally, because I've been here so much longer, like I'm just rooted. So it's hard for me to have a fair comparison. That's why I asked you, because you done your 50-50. So
okay, yeah. So the Hong Kong side.
Yeah, the Hong Kong side. Tell me about the Hong Kong side.
As I said, Singapore has a special place in my heart, but I prefer Hong Kong. You knew I was going to say that. Yeah, I'm from London, and Hong Kong for me is, I grew up in the countryside as well, so not complete city girl, but Hong Kong for me, it's a real city. No offense, Singapore. But you know, you've got streets and public transport is noisy, and you know, taxi drivers are going mental, and it's a walking city as well, which I love. Like, in Singapore, unless you're in the CBD, or unless you're in Tiong Bahru, or unless you're in Novena, you can't really walk between the city here. Like within Hong Kong, whether you're getting on the MRT or on a bus or jumping in a taxi or just walking, you can explore the city on foot, which I love. And I have friends of mine who text me after work and say, "Oh, have you got any plans for dinner?" No, was actually going to go home. Oh, well, I could meet you in half an hour. And you just walk into town and, oh, great, they've got a seat at that table, let's grab dinner. And like that ease and accessibility that Hong Kong has, and it's a very social city. Like people eat out and people do things after work, and they're not traveling an hour and a half to get back home on public transport necessarily. So it's like this vibrant, buzzing city, which I love about it. And then you've got, which Hong Kong I think needs to advertise more, the islands, the beaches, the hikes, which I didn't know existed until I got here. Honestly, the advertising, I just thought it was this beautiful city with skyscrapers and mountains behind it and the bay. And then I discovered that there's 167 islands or something. Obviously, not all of them. Some of them are really small.
Yep.
But these amazing beaches. And then you've got these summers and you can go hiking. And I mean, that just in itself adds like a whole dimension that is completely different.
No, but it's true, because I did hear a lot of people, especially expats as well, tell me about the hiking.
Yeah.
Like, 1 minute you'll be at a pub. Next minute you'll be up in the mountains and enjoy nature. I think that's something very unique, because normally you need to travel aboard in a day or two, and then you try to hike and back home. That could be done in an hour.
I'm house sitting for a friend of mine on Lama at the moment for the summer, and I wake up to jungle and bird song and toads and cockroaches and all the rest of it, and then I walk to the pier. 2 minutes, 20-minute ferry, and I'm outside HSBC.
Yep.
And it's 25-minute ferry from jungle and hills to corporate sort of megatropolis world, and it's yeah, I think Hong Kong is extremely unique in having that juxtaposition so close to each other.
Do you see a lot of changes in Hong Kong the past few years post-COVID? Your experience in Hong Kong?
Maybe not the best person to ask, because I only came once before COVID.
I mean, even the last few years.
Oh, the
like,
last
few
years.
years.
Yeah. Not wild. I mean, I arrived here literally in the middle of COVID, so I could walk down Queen's Road Central and there'd be 3 other people. And that was what I thought Queen's Road Central was. So what it looks like now is madness to me. But I've realised that's just because tourists are back, and also just people are back in the office and everything. So I think I always thought of Hong Kong as a quiet city, but that's just because of when I arrived. So yeah, it's I people ask me like, oh, what's it like? How's it changed? It's kind of feels to me like it's bounced back. It's busy. The restaurants are full. I think tourist wise, that's a big shift, that like having the kind of mainland Chinese tourists coming back and kind of really bringing kind of into the restaurants and shopping and stuff. And that's something that you can definitely see all across, which is obviously great. I don't feel like it's changed wildly. There are certain kind of nuances here and there that you notice. Yeah, I'm seeing, like, for instance, a lot more advertising is now just in Chinese. I've noticed on like lots of the trams. I actually was thinking about this yesterday. And the tram stops where they have the advertising.
Yep.
I went past 3 in a row. I was getting the tram over down to Causeway Bay, and there were 3 in a row that was just 100% in Chinese. And I was like, I clocked it, and I was like, that wouldn't have been like that maybe a year ago or a year and a half ago. So there are little nuances here and there that I've definitely noticed, but drastic, like, mostly no, not really, unless I'm being really naive. But I just think it's nice to see the city bouncing back. And it's also nice when I have friends of mine from Singapore, or clients, or, you know, anyone in particular from Singapore who knew Hong Kong, I guess, pre-protests and pre-COVID, then would maybe came during COVID and went, oh God, what's happened here? And now have come back and they've all gone, oh my God, Hong Kong is so much fun again.
Oh, yes.
We're really jealous you live here, you know. No, so it's nice when you get people saying that. And I'm like, yes, it is. It's a great place.
I think I think for me is quite similar. Like post-COVID, I think our office was like right in Central, like during COVID, right? Like, I think you remember.
Yeah.
Like pre-COVID, it was like, we were always around, and then like during COVID, it's literally dead. And then post-COVID, I was like, okay, it's not coming back. For a couple of years, it feels it was very slow. But this year, I think the whole vibe actually changed a lot. So suddenly, we're back in action. So we've seen that shift, like, and then now we're suddenly just going from that downslope back up.
Yeah. You have to make reservations now.
I know.
Mental.
I know. Madness. I know. I can't get dinner with a reservation again. Like the old days.
I mean, it's obviously a good thing, but it's frustrating. No. But definitely seeing it come back for the positive, for sure.
So, lastly, I like to end the conversation with something more inspiring for the young people. Like, what would be an advice you would give to people just in, like, the Gen Zs or the younger generation just coming into the workforce, into the workforce, in terms of interviews or your advice for them?
I think there's a lot of frustration around, and I'm even referencing my own brother here, who's younger and looking for his first like big role to kind of kickstart him on the career ladder. I think the frustration is kind of setting yourself aside from the pack. Like you said, 200 kind of applications or 500 plus, and usually if there's that many, a good 50 to maybe 100 of them are decent, semi-decent, or relevant for an interview, but there's only one job. And if you look at those numbers, it can probably feel quite demotivating. But I think this is the kind of one thing, and I've said this to my brother, and I've said this to other friends of mine who are looking for a job, younger, Gen Z or not, is it's the personal touch or personal approach that will make you stand out. And what I mean by that is it might take a few minutes of research, but go on LinkedIn, find out who you think that hiring manager would be. So for instance, if you're looking at a digital media executive job, go and find out who you think the head of digital media might be. Likelihood that would be your future boss and the person running the interviews. Add them on LinkedIn. Just send them a message saying, hi, so-and-so, hope you're well, just to let you know I've applied for this job and I just really want to highlight my profile because I'm particularly interested. Be great, if I could have a chat. And it makes a world of difference because trust me, no one else is doing that. And weirdly, yesterday or within this week sometime, I read, it was a little snippet, and sorry I can't reference who it was, but it was a snippet from a VP of sales for a tech company. And she said that she has the 5 sales hires she has made in the last 6 months, all had additionally messaged her on LinkedIn. And she said immediately their profile stood out. I looked at theirs first, plus they were relevant. I didn't need to look elsewhere. So I would say, when it does seem a bit hopeless or the numbers game is too terrifying, make yourself stand out and just politely approach them separately. And trust me, people aren't doing it.
So it sounds like you have to build your social profile early, especially LinkedIn.
Yeah, I don't know whether it's... I mean, don't get me wrong, social profile is important. And I think the personal brand kind of game, especially as we are all more kind of digital savvy now, is definitely important. But I think it's more about, rather than necessarily having a personal brand, like you can maybe not just have a really simple profile, but it's about the personal reach out. And it's about going the extra mile. It's about showing a bit of initiative. Because also the other thing is that hiring manager is going, oh, okay, well, you've thought outside the box. You've done something that the others haven't. And as a hiring manager, would you hire that person or the other?
True.
So I think, and it does separate you from the noise. You create noise to separate from the noise.
No, but I do agree. I've encountered quite a few younger talents. They're not as aggressive as our generation is, even in sales. We used to be extremely aggressive and really enthusiastic about things, and I find that less and less for some reason. Maybe I'm not just hitting the right sort of pool of candidates, but definitely there's a gap from where we used to be, and well, not a gap, but like a difference, I would say.
Yeah, and I said this kind of advice, and it's just a little small tidbit of advice, but I had someone say to me the other day that I mentioned this too. They were like, oh God, but I don't know if I can like message them directly, or won't they be annoyed, or I don't think I could do that. And I said, worst case scenario, they don't reply. Like that is the worst case scenario. So, you might as well. And as I said, this woman in this article had said the last 5 hires she'd made had all messaged her separately. So it's proof in the fact. And I've recently placed someone who messaged me and said, you're advertising for this job. I've applied. I'd obviously missed the application because we have hundreds. He messaged me directly and I was like, oh my gosh, you're perfect. I was like that. And I had to say to him, thank you so much for you have been in control of your application in this instance, because you've put it into my face and said, look at me. And he was perfect person for the job.
I personally take characteristics more, like in terms of the person's character, like especially for younger roles, because I feel that things can be taught. Exactly. But the person needs to be willing to listen and willing to change.
100%.
Yeah, I think that's probably when especially for the younger sort of junior level staff that I work with, I like to look at their character, the way they speak, like a recruiter, okay, do you have the right mentality, vibe?
Yeah, exactly.
So experience is not the most important, I think.
Everything can be taught.
Yeah.
Within some degree.
Yeah. So I think it is more showing your character.
Yeah.
Like you said, maybe the difference is that going that little extra mile just to show that you've got the initiative because everyone else doesn't, or
Yeah.
you know, your thinking pattern. Like, how do you? I like to ask questions where how do you think?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that makes a big difference. But definitely, for young people, they, you know, as being a bit more aggressive and being a bit more extrovert.
Yeah, and
Being a bit more extrovert.
exactly, and like it doesn't suit everyone. So and for certain, for some roles, you don't need to be sort of extroverted, but just being slightly extroverted in that messaging,
just a little bit,
just in the message, and you can still hide behind your screen.
Yep,
Just need to type the message.
Yep.
But it will. I can guarantee you that people are not doing this. And as I said, me as a recruiter, like I've literally placed someone from this exact tactic who successfully like messaged me and was relevant. So yeah, that would be to cut away from the rest of the pack. That would be a little bit of advice.
Now everyone knows.
Now everyone knows.
Now everyone knows.
Hiring managers are going to hate me. They're going to be inundated with messages.
Yeah, exactly. No, thank you, Sophia, for joining
thank you.
me today.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. Absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you so much.